Mark Fleisch is VP and Head of Industry of CPG in GroundTruth. He has 14 years experience with CPGs at agencies, publishers, and tech companies. Along with him is Allisha Watkins. She is President and CEO of Connected Commerce and Executive Consultant and Strategic Advisor for Amplify Retail. She brings over 15 years of success with her in marketing, management, and consumer insights. Please welcome Allisha and Mark.
Hi, great to see everybody.
Your agendas aren't broken. We got bumped by Google and Velasas, which I was thinking is the story of my life. Sorry, I had to make a quick joke about that. No, we love our partners over there.
We're in good company.
We're in
everybody.
Good company, for sure.
Speaking of, I would be remiss not to just make a quick note. This time last year, I was embarking on my detox from the corporate world. It's officially been about 14 months, and it's been one hell of a ride, but amazing. And I just want to say thank you to all the partners out there, all of my colleagues, and it's been such an amazing experience. I'm fortunate enough to get to still work with some amazing brands and companies, including GroundTruth as one of those partners. But today, I want to share with you a really great case study of one of the first projects coming out of Mars.
For you?
Yeah, that'll be great. Okay, so this was the challenge that my client brought to me. And to be honest with you, they had a shopper marketing department. They had a really incredible brand department. They had an agency. But the CMO came to me directly and said, we've got an opportunity to do something different. If we continue to think about things the way that we have, we're going to get what we've gotten, right? And so the challenge for this project was to launch a new brand with multiple items in a brand new category for them. They were a very established business, very large company, but they were also very data-driven and not very marketing savvy. Their biggest competitor had a 60 share in this category and has been around since 1999. Which, by the way, was an amazing year. Anybody else? And there were two other brands that tried to launch in this category that had failed the year prior. They didn't know about that. They didn't know. But this product that they were launching, or this line of products, were priced above the category. Their ultimate goal was to grow category sales, and in addition to on those new items. And success for the retailer was not stealing share from the competition. It was growing incremental sales for the category. We just had assumed that they were just trying to poke the bear, right, at first pass, and this was a really big challenge. They also only gave us 500 stores to do this in 10 weeks.
Good luck.
Right, go. The solution really was to identify the shopper, the mindsets, the barriers, and we'll talk about this later in the panel, but it was so critical to truly understand what those emotions were, what was happening within the category, outside of the category, what's going on with the shopper, and identify all those real-world behaviors that were existing in their lives. Develop effective targeting solutions. Again, as I mentioned, they're a very analytical, finance-driven organization. And every single dollar that was put into the plan had to show the ROI. Every dollar. They had a formula that we had to plug into it, and everything was scrutinized to the 10th degree. The other part was just to reach shoppers throughout the journey, making sure that we're connecting with them in a meaningful way. Again, they were going against a competitor that had a 60 share in the category. They had very, very large budgets. And understand store-level performance. Because those 500 stores were critical to success of the program, we needed to make sure that we were moving the needle there and knew which stores were performing well, and not just that, but why. So this is how location fits in. And of course, this is one part of the larger puzzle that we activated against. But using those advanced targeting solutions to really ensure we're speaking to those shoppers in just those 500 stores, eliminating all of the waste in the rest of the market. Developing the message based on the shopper mindset and behavior, it wasn't about the brand. It was about really connecting with the shopper where they were. And leveraging offline data sets, so not just the sales data, but where they were going, the visits as well, and then optimizing that throughout the campaign in real time. Adjusting the media based on store inventory. So this is really also important because we had other aspects to the campaign, retailtainment, making sure that we weren't driving media to a market where they were out of stock. And we knew before the client did, that they were out of stock in some stores. So being able to share that information with them and adjust the media accordingly. Also, when the item hit the store, if there were any markets that didn't hit according to time, because we all know mod's set on time. But leveraging that location data for retargeting. So capturing those device IDs to be able to connect back with the shoppers. It's the razor model, right, in this particular category, where you want to focus more on the refills than the actual product. And so that was really the important thing for them, is being able to connect back with the shopper after they had purchased the product as well. But really truly understanding how that online and offline behavior can coexist and leveraging that data across the platform itself.
Great. So insert GroundTruth. And I know that Bliss and our friends at ANSA spoke a lot about this as well. So I'm going to try to differentiate. And in the next slide, we're really going to unpack sort of how location data and targeting works, and just things that you need to know about it. But I think we all understand this. The reason why location has grown tremendously as an industry, as a tactic, is because it bridges the online and offline gap, right? So you now understand and can understand how do your online messages, your digital ads impact people's real world behavior. It not only informs targeting, it informs insights, it informs attribution. And most of us in this room are really, still trying to drive in-store sales. It's still 90+% of CPG sales. And so really, really important set of data, not only to use for targeting, but also to understand how your campaign's performing. But before we kind of get into like how we leverage location tactics for this client, which by the way, this is like a really great use case for location with the 500 store test, especially in what they were trying to do in the category. But before we get into that, I kind of want to just give you guys a history lesson, hopefully teach you something along the way. And we're going to talk about just sort of how location accuracy has evolved. So in the location space, there's two things that any location provider has to do really, really well. You have to be able to verify physical places really well, and you have to be able to verify signals from smartphones really well. And so to unpack this, I'm going to start with how different methodologies for verifying physical buildings or physical places. So in the early days of location, a lot of companies would just ingest a bunch of store addresses, drop a pin on a map, and you draw a radius around it or a geofence around it, right? Pretty easy to do, pretty easy to get your hands on a store address list. Obviously, you guys can see, so this is actually a satellite image of a Walmart supercenter attached to a strip mall and somewhere in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure exactly where. But this methodology, as you can see, that circle for one doesn't even capture the store. And if you were to draw the circle large enough to capture the store, you're going to capture a lot of other stuff along with it. So basically, this methodology is saying anyone that enters that circle or that geofence, we're going to say is a Walmart visitor, but clearly a lot of waste involved in doing that. So then people started to use parcel data, also known as land parcel data. And this data is actually pretty good in some cases. So land parcel data is literally what is the lot that this building sits on. So it's used a lot in real estate. We all have, our plot of land drawn out for our home. So in this example, Walmart owns most of their lots. So if someone's on the lot for Walmart, pretty good chance that they're intending to go there. But when you start to get into like strip malls and things like that, that might be one piece of land. You might have 6 businesses on that piece of land. So even though you know with a high degree of accuracy someone's on that lot, you don't necessarily know what store they're in. And so then people started to do, and a lot of companies do this, center of the store-based radius. So a geofence basically manipulating the pin to drop it in the center of the store and draw a circle. Again, much better than the address-based radius, but still some inaccuracies involved at that. And then what we consider is the best way to really measure or to verify physical places is to use polygons, which are basically just shapes, right? So physically drawing the perimeter around the footprint of the building itself. And what polygons enable you to do is to basically understand all of the lat longs associated with that green box. So that green box is the actual footprint of the Walmart. The orange box is the dedicated parking lot for that store, and then the red area is what we call retail block, essentially the shopping center where that building sits. So this allows us to get really accurate in terms of when we see a lat long come to us from a mobile phone, we know if that lat long's inside the store or the parking lot or across the street, right? So polygons are widely considered the most accurate way to kind of verify the physical place itself. But there's another half to the equation, and that's actually verifying the signal itself. So raise your hand, participation points for those who raise their hands. Raise your hand if you ever called for an Uber and the app thinks you're 2 blocks away from where you're actually standing. Right? So that's a good example of a bad signal, right? Your phone, believe it or not, doesn't always function properly. And there's actually a pretty wide range of accuracy in terms of lat long signals that we get. So most of the signals that companies like ours get are coming from consumer apps where you download an app, it says, can I use your location while you're using the app, or in the background you say yes. You're essentially giving that app permission to share your location for the purposes of advertising. But in order to really make sure that those signals that we're getting from phones are accurate, we have to go through, put every signal through a verification process. And most companies do this to some extent or another. But we check for everything for how fast is the person traveling? What's the horizontal accuracy? Like how big is the degree of accuracy? We actually recently ingested store hours. So is the store even open right now? We might see a signal from Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning. That could be someone stocking shelves, but that's not a shopper. We don't want to count them. And so there's a number of different things that we check for to make sure that this signal is really accurate and really precise. And it's a signal that we want to use either to target someone with an ad or for the purposes of attribution, which is, hey, was this actually a visit or not, right? And so it's these two things that really help us create really accurate audiences, target people efficiently and accurately, as well as measuring performance. So measuring, did someone actually show up in store after seeing the ad or not? Does that all make sense? Cool? All right. So we use this data to really inform kind of the physical context of where is someone physically on that path to purchase, using location to understand that, and that can really help inform what we say to these people in the case of this particular program, which I don't know if we were supposed to share who it was, but there it is. So first and foremost, like the foundation of most of our strategy is to really, for 500 store test, we want to make sure we're only talking to people that shop those 500 stores. So again, we take those signals of people that we've seen inside those green boxes or at those 500 Walmarts, and we build essentially a loyal audience. And so we're going to serve them very targeted ads, driving to Walmart. We know that they're loyal to Walmart. We know they shop there and not some of these other locations. Furthermore, we find that it's most effective. We see the most conversions when we can kind of reach people throughout multiple points of the physical journey to store. So at the end of the day, like, let's be honest, we're serving a mobile banner ad, right? So you kind of have to hit them a few different times to really kind of drive that consideration and ultimately the conversion. So in order to reach them pre-shop, we use a tactic we call neighborhoods, which is essentially, without getting into the details, we use heat map technology to essentially identify residential areas that have the highest propensity to shop one of those 500 stores. So instead of drawing like a big 10-mile radius around the store, we really only focus on those residential blocks that we know have the highest propensity to shop there, which really helps us make sure we're reaching the right shoppers pre-shop. Then we do kind of a last mile strategy. So if you're within a mile or so from the store, we'll serve you a location aware message, really trying to get you into the store, knowing that you're out and about right now. And then all the way down to on-premise, what we call on-premise or on-lot. So we know that you are in the shopping center, in the parking lot, or in the store. We're going to serve you an ad that might be drive to aisle. It might serve you an offer that you can redeem in store, something like that. But really, this is your moment to really close the deal, right? To get them into the aisle to drive that conversion. And then finally, I'm going to flip through a lot of this stuff because our friends at Bliss and ANSA talked about this, but for this product, it was a new launch, so we leveraged first scan technology for this to understand when was the product available at each of those 500 stores, and so we don't activate media until we know the product's on the shelf. In addition, we can use POS data to, again, sort of heavy up to top performing stores and pull back on lower performing stores, et cetera. Like our friends talked about.
Yeah, and just, sorry to interrupt you, just touching on that really quickly, that was important to know, because then as we're going back in for the line review with the buyer, having that analytics conversation behind which stores performed best and replicating that using the store traits across the country. So that was really, really important for us to be able to walk into the conversation knowing which stores were most receptive to the brand and the product and perform the best there, and making that recommendation for the future.
And this is even in the absence of POS data, which we always typically have some sort of POS signal that we're using. But from a visitation standpoint, I agree with my buddy at Bliss. We don't really look at click-through rate, right? When we're trying to drive offline behaviors, offline results, click-through doesn't really tell us much. Instead, we really optimize towards these two main metrics, which are store visit rate and cost per visit. Essentially, store visit rate is if you reach 100 people and 20 of those people show up in the store within a few days of seeing the ad, your store visit rate is 20%, right? So our goal is always to drive store visit rate up, which tells us if we have a high percentage, a high store visit rate, that means we're reaching the right shoppers, we're reaching the right people who are showing up in store as a result. And then cost per visit tells us how efficiently are we doing that. So we always want to try to drive cost per visit down. So if I spend $1,000, drive 1,000 visits, my cost per visit's $1, right? So I want to get that down and store visit rate up, and we can actually see this type of performance at a tactic level and really understand by store what tactic is most effective in terms of generating that visit. And that's how we kind of optimize our tactics on the back end. And then again, layering on that POS data to understand which stores do we want to drive them to. And then finally, the results. And I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, leveraging those brand insights for future activities and innovation as they go across the portfolio and launching this new brand, not only at Walmart, but other retailers as well. Sharing all of those details. And the great thing about GroundTruth and some of the other partners we had is providing all of that rich data, not just the reporting on how the media worked, but really who the consumer and shopper was. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, they had no insights. They didn't really understand the category. They didn't understand the consumer. And went into it very blindly. And that was my feedback back to my client. But the great news is that using partners like GroundTruth, we were able to at least help them get closer to understanding that journey. It was a successful new item launch for the brand and for the customer, launching it in other markets as well. So they're very, very pleased with the activation and taking some of those elements back into the brand team as well.
We're actually rinsing and repeating this for 2 other retailers actually this quarter. So results were very strong at Walmart, and we're essentially applying the same logic for a couple other retailers where this line of products is launching.
Yep. There's a couple more.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Building.
For that particular program, double-digit category growth, I'm not supposed to talk about who it is or the specific results. Because I'm under NDA, but that's okay. They had a very successful program and it went very well. Our expanding store count and additional items in the mod as well. So at the end of the day, we delivered the customer goals for the retailer, the shopper goals, being able to help them with the solution that they were looking for and something different in the category, and then also the brand goals with a very successful campaign. Right.
And that is it.
And a happy client.
Of course, that's all that matters.
Thank you.